All right, Minimate, welcome back. Otherwise known as Dovbroevsky, according to one of you. I thought that was pretty creative, very broactive on the creative names that we're coming up with. But um, I'm not going to make this too long-winded a video. Just I've been having so many people reach out to me about this, and yeah, Xana's going hypernuclear, and we're going to talk a little bit about the latest developments with Xano. I actually got my Xano T-shirt on today, and we're not going to go total moon boy. We're actually going to get into like some of the facts as to what's going on. But I've been telling you guys about this project for like a super long time at this point, just kind of on and off. I haven't been making a lot of videos about like what's really been going on with this project. Just I've been mentioning it in passing to you all in the videos and then my bros in real life, just saying, hey, you may want to check this out. It's probably going to go hyper nuclear at one point. And this isn't really like the hyper nuclear move I'm expecting. I mean, I know we're up 2200% in the last few years, and what is it, over the last year 422%, and I think over the last 2 years I saw it was like 1500% or something like that. So not too bad. And I think I started telling you guys about it when it was like around here. Although I did get into it, somebody had reached out to me back in 2021, the crazy days when everything was going just hyper nuclear. And so, shouts out to Gigabytes, I believe is your name. You started to train me in the ways of Xano, going back all this way, answering all my questions, being incredibly generous with the information, and inviting me to the Telegram, which at the time I think only had like a few hundred people in the chat. And I think now we have 5,000 or so in the Telegram chat, which is pretty cool to see. So lots of people getting increasingly interested and more people talking about it on Twitter. And we'll get to some of those soon. But otherwise, it's doing pretty well, folks. Doing pretty well. And I know a lot of you are fairly happy about the price action, but there's more to come. I mean, this is nothing yet. I'm big on the super hyper mega nuclear move, which is coming for both Monero and Zeno, in my opinion. But that comes when people have the realization of kind of what's to come for crypto, what has happened already with crypto. Hijacking Bitcoin by Roger Ver has kind of played into this. More people are starting to recognize the direction crypto is going and has been going for quite a long time, and what the real revolutionary technology is here, and that's private peer-to-peer transactions and having things that are truly off the system, not on centralized exchanges, not relying on third parties, but things that are peer-to-peer and private. And that's the revolutionary element when it comes to cryptocurrency. And Zeno and Monero are doing a great job expanding that horizon and use case. And I'll talk a little bit about why I'm excited about Zeno and give you guys perspective as to why I've wanted you guys to look at this going back as long as we've gone back to kind of mention it on and off. So, first off, Xanolist.com. It's a great place to follow, get some Xano insights and news. He also has a shop where I got my shirt here. Shouts out to whoever is running this website. They seem pretty cool. I've chatted with you a couple times. So, the main reason why I'm into Xano is the Xano decentralized marketplace function and the ability for people to do peer-to-peer transactions through a marketplace that doesn't rely on third parties. Because pretty much every marketplace you go to, whether it's Amazon or eBay or Etsy or the dark web marketplaces, which I don't use, but a lot of people do, um, there's a third party involved. And these people, in many cases, determine what can or can't be sold. These people determine, what is price gouging, what isn't price gouging. Because if you guys go back to 2020, when you had the personal protective equipment start hitting Amazon, and you had these plastic gloves being sold for like hundreds of dollars, the Amazon bros kicked them off and said, we don't allow that on our marketplace. This is price gouging. And what did those people go? They went to another marketplace, right? They went to the dark web marketplaces, where then they sold everything for presumably Monero, right? And so the prospect of having decentralized marketplaces that are peer-to-peer, where people can configure proper risk apportionments using the escrow contracts feature, which is one of the big revolutionary things that's part of the Zeno blockchain. Um, that is super cool to me, and that's what got me involved. Most of the people who have heard about Zeno, those people are into it for the private token element. And I understand there are some big names in our space who are big about the private token element. For me, I'm still trying to figure out what the use case of those tokens would be. I know Aaron Day's got some ideas, Roger Vera some ideas. For me, I need to do more research to figure out what those use cases would be. I know Gonbat Fire, who we're about to hit a tab here soon, talks about private stable coins using the confidential layer, which is something else that's in the works for the Zano team. But for me, it just seems like a way for people to come up with their cool tokens and express some kind of creative element with the blockchain. It's kind of similar to the NFTs, and you guys know I was never into all that. It's similar to the meme coins, which again I've never been too much into, but people are doing it. People are making these meme coins on Zano through the confidential assets technology and through Zano Trade, which is a private peer-to-peer cryptocurrency exchange where you can exchange these confidential assets. People are trading them around. And so it's kind of like a cool thing, but really what I'm focused on when it comes to cryptocurrencies like Monero and Zano is building up that real hardcore use case so that you can establish inelastic demand and establish a functional way that people can transact for goods and services outside of the system. Like that's the main thing we're trying to accomplish here, which is why I accept Zano and Monero for my business. I just started accepting Zano recently, probably within the last month. So what I do is I tag my Zano address to my invoice with my alias, which is Zano CPA, and people can just pay me that way using Zano. And the more people that do that, the more that you can establish a parallel economy using these private cryptocurrencies, which is ultimately the whole goal anyway. So this is a project right here, which is being worked on by a fella named Kexploit. And he's in the Zano Telegram. Shouts out to Kexploit. And he's building something called the Zano Bazaar. And it's been something that's been in the works for a little bit over a year. And I think there's still developments going on with it. But, I still think it's in the works, and I'm looking forward to this coming out so people can trade whatever they want and advertise their services and whatever. And one thing I should say about the Zano Bazaar, and I guess decentralized marketplaces, the idea thereof, is that we saw an interesting thing happen with the incognito market, where I think this is probably 2 months ago or so, where the administrator of that market started to like extort the users of his marketplace. Another thing you run into when it comes to so-called private marketplaces that are run by an administrator, they tend to have an asymmetric level of information and power. And when you have peer-to-peer marketplaces, the likes of which I think we're going to see with Zano, you don't have to deal with that concern. Everyone can remain anonymous, and you can figure out how to do the distribution of the risk profile with the escrow contracts. If there is a trade that's going to be more risky for one party than another, then the one party that it's not too risky for, they can, have a little bit of collateral. The other party, they can demand more collateral. They can figure that kind of dynamic out. And I've messed around with the escrow contracts a little bit to try to get my head around it. And I think it's something that has some potential. And it's something that has some potential in my business too. So if I'm working on like bookkeeping cleanup, which can take a while, especially if they have a lot of accounts and the reconciliations are off and like things don't match the prior tax returns and whatever, then there's a lot that I have to do. And it could be that I, work on this project, which racks up thousands of dollars in costs. And instead of hoping that this person, by the time I'm done, pays me, then what I can do is have them set up a contract in the Zeno escrow contract system, and they can post collateral for the project. And that makes me a little bit more confident that they're going to follow through on paying me for the project. So we set up maybe a contract, and I'm going to follow through on my bookkeeping end. And basically what they do is they post a deposit for the contract, and their collateral, if they don't follow through on paying me, gets burned. And so they lose out completely. So they have a little bit of skin in the game. Now, what I typically do is I just get a deposit from my clients when I do these kinds of things. But, this is another way to do it through private crypto, which is kind of cool. And I don't necessarily have the deposit yet. Instead, what they do is they just burn their fee, their collateral, if we don't follow through on making the trade. Now, I didn't explain that very well. I know I should do a whole other video on the escrow contracts altogether, because there are a lot of different possibilities with it, and I haven't used it yet in my business. I'm looking forward to doing that. But it is a cool thing that if you do some research on and investigate, you can see how there could be a lot of potential when it comes to peer-to-peer marketplaces, maybe when it comes to peer-to-peer cryptocurrency exchange. And that's something that they're going to integrate, as if you look here, they're working on a peer-to-peer platform web app, which is a peer-to-peer cryptocurrency trading platform enabled by escrow contracts. So they've got these things called ionic swaps that they implemented quite a while ago, but it's a way it's like better than atomic swaps. Don't ask me why. I'm not that tech savvy with this stuff, but it's also a way to help out the peer-to-peer element of this. So you have more trustless interactions, and the technology takes care of that kind of thing. But so the Zano Bazaar is coming along, and a shout out to David Black. I guess he's looking for developers to help him establish a Zano payment gateway for WooCommerce. And if you're in the Monero world, WooCommerce is a popular way for people to accept Monero. It's like a plugin that you use on your website that allows you to take Monero payments. And so he's trying to establish that for Zano. He says it's a fork of the Monero gateway, and he's looking for contributors. So if you're good at this kind of thing, I guess go help him out. That's something coming along. The more ways that we could transact with Zano, the better. And I know some people are reaching out to different payment processing companies trying to get Zano adopted. People are talking about that in the chat. But I asked in the Zano project Telegram, will Zano adopt full chain membership proofs? Thought I remembered somebody saying something about that being a possibility. And Quibs, who is pretty much like the marketing outreach guy, he's sort of the ambassador to Zano, I think is your proper title, Quibs. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he says when Monero has done it, Zano will follow. And just to recap on full chain membership proofs, that's going to take the anonymity and the privacy of Monero to orders of magnitude levels higher. And I'm not going to get into the details of it. The outputs go from like 16 to 100 million or something like that. And so like it becomes a lot more private. I need to do another video on that, but many people are excited about it. It's going to make Monero more private than it already is. And there are other projects which are talking about implementing it after Monero does it. And Zano and Monero, there is some overlap when it comes to the developers. So you're probably going to have some people who are familiar with how it was integrated in Monero to help integrate that in Zano, like Co, for instance, may be a guy. And I know the people working on it for Monero, Luke Parker and Justin Berman, but I think there's going to be work to be done on this. But that's probably not something that's going to happen soon. It's probably going to happen next, couple of years, I would say. So it's not, too high on the list, because if you look at this roadmap that Zano has, they're working on a lot of stuff. You got Zano governance, anonymous on-chain voting for major decisions of coin holders. You got the Cake wallet integration that they've been working on since April. Same thing with the Bitcoin.com wallet integration. And they're working on confidential layer and P2P off-chain protocol. I'm not sure what that is, but yeah, look at all the stuff that they're working on. There's a lot in the pipeline. So as far as implementing that I do remember Zoidberg saying that he was very interested in getting full chain membership proofs on the Zano, which would make the privacy a lot better. So, Untraceable made a post about the use cases for confidential assets, and he's questioning like what the real use cases could be. Now, I'm not in Zano for the confidential assets. I know a lot of people are, and that's what intrigues them, the private tokens and the possibilities thereof. But for me, again, it's the private, decentralized marketplaces and it's the escrow function. That's what really got me turned on to this project. And plus, they have tail emission. Now they have this feature where if there are a lot of transactions taking place on the Zano blockchain, then it goes into a deflationary um, tokenomic dynamic, and that's because the transaction fees are burned. And so, if there are enough transactions, then the supply of Zano actually goes down. And some people look at that positively in a store of value type of perspective, on top of the fact that you can stake it and you can get yield from staking it. So the store of value thing plays into that a little bit. And if you establish inelastic demand, which we're trying to do with the decentralized marketplaces and using it in real world commerce, then it could be an attractive thing for people to hold because, you could have a deflationary interest bearing, if you want to call it that, asset that's private, which is kind of cool. But Untraceable, he questions this because of reasons that he gave. I could go back through it. Let's see. He says Zeno has no smart contracts, meaning the confidential assets are quote unquote dumb tokens like ordinals, except that on Bitcoin, anyone can mint these tokens, whereas Zeno is totally centralized. Only the owner of the asset can mint and burn. So he needs to manually send it and mint it and hope they buy it from him. So basically, you have to be in charge of the distribution. Now, I don't know if this is the dynamic that's going to be how this works moving forward, or if there's going to be a more fair distribution type of system. I'm not well educated on how this works in regards to like fair distribution of assets and how Zano could update that to make it more fair or better according to Untraceable. But again, I'm not the privacy token guy. I just want to use this in trade. But Gonbat Fire says at current state, stable coins or any asset representation backed by a trusted entity is roughly $150 billion market. Regarding distribution, yes, programmability is limited, but you can make the issuer wallet an auditable wallet, allowing anyone to see where the funds are transferred, then generate a public list of addresses based on whatever criteria you like, which seems like a reasonable idea. And once you send them the entire supply, it's out of your control. Then it's out in the wild. People can trade it and do whatever they want with it. It's basically what he's saying. If you want more sophisticated distributions or assets, you'll have to wait a bit more for confidential layers, decentralized bridge, which would, for example, allow turning ETH assets private like DAI or RAI, or private versions of other cryptos like Bitcoin. So, interesting idea. Now, Untraceable says something kind of interesting. He says, I'm not convinced there will be traction with confidential layer. One can already make ETH assets private via Railgun and remain within the ecosystem. For Zano to be successful or useful, it needs to focus on a way to fairly distribute confidential assets. Now, he's talking about Zano privacy tokens. I think still Zano is useful regardless of the privacy tokens. And that's, like, honestly, the main point of this video is a lot of people do get hung up on the privacy token element, but there's so much more going on with this that I wouldn't give too much weight to that, although there are some interesting ideas that are out there. Like there's one guy who tried to establish a tokenization system on Zano for goldbacks. The goldbacks, they have like a reference number or like an ID on them, and you could tie that to a token. And if you trade the token, then you don't have to trade the actual gold back. You can trade the gold backs online in a way, and then you can redeem your gold back through exchanging that particular token for it. So somebody came up with an interesting idea for that, and maybe you have like gold back ATMs where you could redeem your uh, token for a gold back or something like this. I'm not sure how all that works, but some people are experimenting with different ideas in regards to confidential assets and how to make them useful. But he says here, Railgun. But one thing that happened with Railgun recently, which was interesting, and this is from Scylla Brimer. Shouts out to Scylla. You're awesome. She says that um, about 4,000 Bitcoin was divided. Now, this is like stolen Bitcoin, and it had moved across Thorchain and Qcoin and Railgun and whatever. And she says that about 4,000 Bitcoin is divided into smaller chunks in an attempt to make it difficult to trace the funds back to their original source. However, when the hackers attempted to use Railgun to shield the funds, the stolen Bitcoin did not meet the criteria for privacy within Railgun, leading to its unshielding and return, which left the stolen assets exposed rather than protected by the intended quote unquote privacy protocols. So it looks like Railgun didn't follow through. And Scylla says, unfortunately, privacy in the crypto space is becoming a buzzword. Beware of charlatans like Railgun Project. As the demand for privacy grows, expect a flood of so-called quote-unquote privacy protocols that offer nothing but smoke and mirrors. And I believe somebody had something to the point. I think that, yeah. So this guy says, yes, Railgun allows you to quote-unquote prove that your original transaction before mixing was from untainted coins. It uses a ZK to show where the origin of the coins came from if you're audited. Like I always said, compliant privacy is backdoored privacy. And this is from Freaknik. I believe we've corresponded a little bit. So in regards to the Railgun thing, I guess not so private. And I think Zano would be perhaps a better solution to making Ethereum assets private, based on what I just read. So speaking of confidential layer, I'm not too familiar with this project. One of the things that I had spoken about to Combat Fire in regards to confidential money, I believe I made a post on this. Let's see. I believe I had commented back to him because basically what confidential layer is an effort to, in one way, I think they're doing many other things, but they're most known for trying to establish a private stablecoin, which is like the holy grail, right? That's what everyone's trying to do, like Haven and I believe like Zeph protocol or something like that was popular for a little bit because they were trying to do that. But um, the algorithmic stablecoins have been not very successful. And that's unfortunate because I rooted for Haven for a while to establish this private algorithmic stablecoin. And they had other ideas involved in that and like tying different assets into this whole thing, but it ultimately just didn't work. And so some people are excited by this prospect with the confidential layer, where they say, experience the future of financial privacy and security. Our unique depository backed stablecoin is designed with your financial confidentiality in mind. Enjoy a low annual interest rate and unparalleled staking possibilities, offering unmatched privacy and ease of use. Our technology ensures complete privacy, preventing the tracing of transactions and balances, making it the ideal choice for securely storing savings in fiat currencies worldwide. So, what I asked in regards to this was like, what jurisdiction is this going to be established in? Like, what is going to comprise of the deposits? And they have a little thing up here regarding proof of reserves, but it says it's coming soon. So there is like a trust factor where you have to trust that these people actually have the reserves they have. Although, maybe they could use an auditable wallet again to where you can kind of check in real time on the chain to see if they have the assets. And it's not like Tether where they've got like, Chinese commercial real estate paper and US treasuries and like all this other crap that's comprising the assets which are backing the Tether. It could be that this is based on an auditable wallet, but how do you get those assets first? In what jurisdiction is this going to be located? What laws do they have to comply with? Are they going to comply with laws? Just there are a lot of questions that I have in regards to this. And, how is the interest paid if people are going to be depositing money in exchange, getting a one-to-one amount out for their private stablecoin? How is the interest paid? Unless they're depositing Zano, they're getting the private stablecoin. You can't get interest or staking yield on the private stablecoin, but because you deposit Zano, they get the staking yield, and maybe that's what they pay out for interest. I mean, I'm trying to think of how this works, but some people are excited about this, and it's something that's in the works as of now. And so I don't want to sound like a doubter. I'm just asking questions, and maybe if I get somebody from the Zano team on, they can better explain this. But yeah, so here's like more stuff about what's to come. Uh, and just a quick comment on the fella from Telegram who was arrested, the founder. I feel like we're getting that much closer to people valuing uh, private cryptocurrencies. I feel like just there has been so much happening over the last just a couple years in regards to the war on privacy, as Zach Voel talks about right here. Tornado Cash's CEO, or excuse me, co-founder, is still in jail. Samurai Wallet's founders were also jailed. The Silk Road founder is serving 2 life sentences. And there's a crackdown on privacy. They don't want you to have privacy. And I think that private cryptos are going to serve as sort of like a social backlash against the surveillance state that's continually creeping in to try to take away your freedom of speech, to try to take away your privacy, to try to take away your cash. There's this ongoing war on cash, and people are going to just have a knee-jerk reaction to private cryptos because they will just reject that as an attack on their sovereignty. And that's what people typically do when they get assailed in such a way, is they just look for things like private cryptos or look for something that's just going to piss off whoever it is that's trying to take their autonomy like that. And so, given more people are waking up to the privacy problems with Bitcoin and Ethereum and most of these major cryptocurrencies, I think there's going to be a lot of social capital for a lot of influencers out there who want to support a kind of move against the system for an overreach like this. And I think in one way that's going to be with private cryptocurrency. So just kind of an update on that. And then Vlad, who's becoming kind of a big Zano bro out there, also a Monero bro, also just in general a privacy guy. He retweeted something in regards to information on Zano. It's sort of like an infographic. You can pause the video and read this if you would like, assuming my screen isn't taking it up. But he says it's more simple to me why I'm in Zano. He says Zano is built by the same guys who worked on Monero's cryptography. Zano does tokens with Monero privacy, very useful for its cypherpunk future. And the Zeno community is grassroots and great, focusing on tech over hype, and Roger Ver told me about it. So Roger Ver is a pretty smart guy. And then here's Aaron Day, another big Zano bro out there, and he has a lot of ideas as to the use cases for confidential assets and tokens. He says, I first announced that I downloaded a wallet and acquired some Zano on 5/11. And he's been fighting against CBDCs. He's been holding workshops and has been doing a lot of podcasts. And he says, I usually don't talk about price, but I'm going to show you this chart now and express that my plan for the rest of the year and going into 25 is about building a focused movement centered around integrating Zano as part of a privacy-focused solution with wallets and point-of-sale systems. My primary focus is utility and stopping the trends toward totalitarianism. And he says price will naturally follow this utility. And I agree. I mean, the more that we can get people to simply use it for economic transactions, the more that we can get people to adopt it, and the more that the ecosystem can be built with these ideas they're working on now, the more it'll, go up in price, but the more freedom we'll have too, to move away from these total tyrants which are taking over these freaking satanic, just scary people. So that's all I've got to talk about. Again, here's the chart. It's dipping down a little bit, but I think we hit $6 today. Okay, we got up to about 5.90. I believe on some other exchanges it got up to about $6. So it's moving a lot up right now. You could probably expect a pullback, but given the amount of people who reached out to me about this, I figured I'd make a video. And I do want to make distinct videos for escrow contracts and for some of the other elements involved with Zano, because I know I didn't explain some of those things very well. Do more research on it. I believe the escrow contract function is down for now because they just did the Zarkanum fork recently, and that did something to the escrow contract capability. They have to adjust some things to bring it back online, but really that is like a very strong feature of this project. So yeah, check out Monero, check out Zano. The only two cryptocurrencies I really like right now. I only really like these two. I've kind of phased out of some other ones that I was in. I phased out of those probably the better part of a year or two ago. But really, it's just these two that I'm interested in right now. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the Zano and what's going on with it. And I think at some point I'll bring somebody from the team on board to have a chat. Mr. Quibb shouts out. We'll probably do one together. But yeah, that's all I got for you. Just a little bit of an update. My name is Mateo. See ya. Talk soon.